Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're heading back in time to ancient Rome, but not the Rome you see on those postcards.
Yeah, we're going beyond the Colosseum and the Forum today.
Exactly. We're going deep, uncovering the stuff they don't usually tell you about.
The hidden, the shocking, the downright strange side of Roman life.
Like, did they really wear togas all the time? And did they have good plumbing?
Well, about that plumbing, you might be surprised.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. So, where are we starting our Roman adventure?
Well, we've got a stack of fascinating articles lined up for this one, from Ancient Origins, History.com, Medium, and a few others.
Excellent. And what kind of secrets are these articles going to reveal?
Oh, all sorts.
Is it?
Everything from family dramas and powerful emperors to, well, let's just say the Romans might not have been as clean as you think.
Oh, now that's just mean. You're going to leave me hanging.
Maybe just a little, but trust me, it's worth the wait.
All right, fine. But you better deliver some juicy Roman gossip.
Oh, I will. I will.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Our first stop takes us straight to the heart of those Roman households.
Right to the family drama.
Exactly. And this article from Ancient Origins, 10 Shocking Facts About the Ancient Romans, reveals some pretty intense power dynamics.
It does. For example, it talks about the absolute authority of the paterfamilias.
The paterfamilias.
Yeah, the male head of the household. Imagine living in a world where your dad basically had complete control over you, even to the point of, like, life or death.
Whoa, that's intense. I mean, parents today might think they have it tough, but that's on a whole other level. What kind of impact do you think this absolute power had on Roman families?
Well, I guess on one hand, it might have provided some sense of stability and order,
Yeah.
right, in a society that really valued hierarchy. But on the other hand, it must have created this atmosphere of fear and obedience. Like, can you imagine constantly living under your father's judgment?
It's a bit chilling to think about, like no pressure or anything. And the article mentions that the punishment for patricide, killing your father, was equally horrifying.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty gruesome. Sewn into a leather sack with animals and then thrown into the water. Talk about a deterrent.
Yikes, that's a rough way to go.
It really shows how seriously the Romans took the crime of patricide. It wasn't just about punishing that person. It was about upholding the whole family structure, the authority of the father.
Makes sense in a way. Okay, so it's clear that Roman law and society were very different from our own, but it wasn't all about life and death decisions within families, right?
Right. The article also mentions Roman laws surrounding adultery.
Ooh, adultery. Now we're talking. So what was their take on infidelity?
Well, it seems they had a very specific, almost like ritualistic process for handling these cases.
Ritualistic. Tell me more. I'm hooked.
So, for a husband to accuse his wife of adultery, he had to gather witnesses and evidence, all within a specific time frame. And if he didn't follow the exact procedures, the case could be thrown out.
Wow, that's so interesting. It wasn't just a personal matter, but like a public concern. Why do you think that was? I mean, why was controlling female sexuality so important to them?
But remember, inheritance and lineage played a huge role in Roman society. Ensuring the legitimacy of heirs was crucial for maintaining power and social order. So by controlling female sexuality, they were basically trying to control paternity,
Ah, so it all comes back to power.
as it so often does in history.
Very true. It seems like every aspect of Roman life, from those intense family dynamics to those very specific legal procedures, was tied to their anxieties about power and
It
control.
was a complex society, that's for sure.
Full of contradictions and probably a fair share of drama, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of drama, let's move on to some of the most dramatic figures in Roman history, the emperors.
Ah, yes, the emperors. The larger-than-life figures who dominated the Roman landscape.
Our source from History.com, 11 Roman emperors who helped mold the ancient world, takes us right into their world.
And what a world it was.
All right, so I have to ask the obvious question. Can we talk about Roman emperors without mentioning Julius Caesar and Augustus?
Of course not. I mean, Caesar, the brilliant general who really laid the groundwork for the empire, and Augustus, Rome's first official emperor, who ushered in the Pax Romana.
Pax Romana, that golden age of peace and prosperity. These are names that echo through history, for sure. But what about the emperors who don't always make it into the textbooks? The ones who might surprise us?
Oh, there are plenty of those. Like Vespasian, for example. He came to power after the reign of Nero.
Nero. Talk about a tough act to follow.
Yeah, Nero's reign was a time of chaos and instability. Fires, executions, you name it. Vespasian had his work cut out for him, restoring order to an empire that was basically in turmoil.
It must have taken some serious skill and determination to pull that off. What was his secret?
Well, he was known for his practicality, his focus on strengthening the Roman economy, and he also launched some pretty ambitious building projects like the Colosseum to boost morale and provide jobs.
Ah, the Colosseum. What a symbol of Roman ingenuity.
And his son, Titus, also played a significant role. He oversaw the completion of the Colosseum and was known for his generosity, especially after that eruption of Mount Vesuvius.
You know, it's interesting how even in the face of such tragedies, these emperors were expected to, like, maintain order and provide for their people. It seems like a huge burden to bear.
It definitely was. But some emperors really thrived under that pressure. Take Trajan, for example. History.com talks about his military campaigns, expanding the Roman Empire to its greatest geographical extent. But he also implemented social welfare programs, showing concern for the well-being of his citizens.
So he was a conqueror with a heart. That's not the image I usually get of Roman emperors.
It's a good reminder that these were complex individuals, driven by all sorts of motivations.
And then there's Hadrian, famous for securing Rome's borders with, like, Hadrian's Wall in Britain. It's amazing how these structures are still standing today.
Right. A real testament to Roman engineering. But Hadrian's legacy goes beyond just military fortifications. He was also a big supporter of the arts and architecture. The Pantheon, that masterpiece of Roman architecture, is thanks to him.
You know, it's incredible how these emperors managed to balance military expansion with cultural development. They weren't just building an empire, they were shaping a civilization.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that the Roman Empire wasn't just about military might and grand monuments. It was a real society with its own customs, its own beliefs, some of which, might seem pretty shocking to us today.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the grandeur of Rome and forget that everyday life was probably full of its own challenges and, well, maybe some less glamorous moments. So should we take a look behind the curtain and see what life was really like for ordinary Romans?
Absolutely. And let's just say it wasn't all togas and triumphal processions.
Okay, so we've covered those intense family dynamics and those powerful emperors. But what about the daily life of your average Roman, the nitty-gritty details? Was it really all it's cracked up to be?
Well, let's just say their hygiene standards might not exactly meet our modern expectations.
Oh, come on, spill the beans. What are you talking about?
Well, our medium source, 7 unbelievable practices in ancient Rome that are too disturbing to imagine, well, it paints a rather interesting picture. Let's just say it wasn't all sunshine and roses.
Interesting. Try me. I can handle it.
All right, so those famous Roman baths, the ones you always see in movies, those weren't necessarily as clean as you might think.
Wait, seriously? But I thought the Romans were all about those public baths.
They were, but here's the thing. Before they hopped in, they'd lather themselves up with olive oil.
Olive oil, okay. Makes sense. Keep the skin soft.
Yeah, but then all that oil mixed with dirt and sweat, well, it would often be reused.
Reused, like for what?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes even repurposed.
Repurposed. Okay, now I'm really curious.
Let's just say some women would collect this used oil and, well, use it as hair conditioner.
As hair conditioner. Oh, wow. That's something.
It kind of changes your image of those glamorous Roman baths, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Makes you wonder if maybe they had some interesting smells going on in there.
Probably. And this wasn't just a bath thing. It seems like hygiene in general wasn't really their top priority.
You're kidding, right? I mean, didn't they have a pretty advanced sewer system?
They did, but when it came to human waste, well, let's just say they weren't exactly sticklers for sanitation. Archaeologists have found streets literally littered with, well, excrement and decaying food.
Oh, that's just gross. Seriously, with all their advancements in engineering and whatnot, you'd think they'd be a little more, hygienic.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it seems like it was just a fact of life back then.
Okay, well, moving on from that lovely image, our source from History.com, The Dark Side of Ancient Rome, delves into some of the less savory aspects of their legal system. Apparently, torture was a pretty common occurrence.
Yeah, it was. Especially when it came to slaves. They were seen as, well, property, not really people with rights. So torture was considered an acceptable way to get information from them.
That's just awful. I thought Roman law was supposed to be all about justice and stuff.
It was, in a way, but it was also a reflection of the huge inequalities in their society. Slaves were at the bottom of the hierarchy, and their well-being just wasn't a priority.
Speaking of inequalities, this practice of expositio, abandoning unwanted infants, it's just heartbreaking. What drove them to do something so drastic?
Well, infant mortality rates were sky high back then. Many families, they just couldn't afford to care for another child, especially if that child was, sick or had some kind of disability.
So it was a matter of survival, in a way.
Often, yes. But there were also these cultural pressures. Roman society really valued physical perfection, and a child with a disability was seen as a burden, a shame on the family.
It's hard to imagine making that kind of decision, abandoning your own child. Were there any, social safety nets back then? Anything to help those abandoned infants?
There were some limited forms of welfare, but it was far from comprehensive. Some infants were taken in by wealthy families, sometimes as slaves, sometimes as adopted children, but many, many others were just left to die. It's a really dark chapter in Roman history.
It's so sad to think about. Okay, well, I'm ready for something a little lighter. What about Roman food? Was it all grapes and gladiators?
Well, not exactly. Our source, 10 bizarre, weird foods of ancient Rome, suggests they had some rather, shall we say, unique tastes.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Give me the juicy details. What did these Romans consider a delicacy?
All right, you ready for this? Garum,
Garum. What's that?
fermented fish sauce. And they used it on pretty much everything.
Fermented fish sauce. You mean like rotten fish?
Pretty much.
Mm.
They'd leave fish guts to ferment in the sun for weeks, sometimes even months.
Oh, that sounds potent. And they put this on everything.
They thought it added a certain depth of flavor. They even used it in some desserts.
Desserts, fish sauce and desserts. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, maybe not for everyone.
Uh,
They also love something called jellied meats. Not your grandma's aspic, though. Imagine, elaborate creations with meat, herbs, spices, all suspended in this savory jelly. They even use snow from the mountains to chill these dishes.
Wow, that's actually pretty impressive.
Right. And for something truly exotic, they were really into these fancy birds, peacock, flamingo, even nightingale tongues.
Nightingale tongues. How did they even get those? Those birds are tiny.
Well, it was all about the novelty, the luxury, showing off your status. Oh, and if you're feeling really adventurous, you could try dormice.
Dormice, like the cute little sleepy things.
Yep, those dormice. Roasted and eaten whole. A real Roman delicacy.
I have to give them credit for creativity, at least. But I think I'll stick to my modern day snacks.
Probably a good idea. So, we've gone from the heights of Roman power to the depths of their hygiene, and now we've had a taste of their, shall we say, adventurous cuisine. What else is there to uncover about this ancient civilization?
Well, how about we delve into the hidden depths of Rome itself? Literally. Our source from the collector, Exploring Underground Rome, talks about a whole subterranean world beneath those bustling Roman streets.
Oh yeah, Rome has layers, like a lasagna.
Okay, I'm all in. What kind of underground secrets are we talking about?
Well, there's a Basilica of San Clemente, for one. It's a beautiful church, but underneath there are these incredible ruins, the remains of a 4th century basilica, and even deeper, the remnants of a 1st century Roman house. It's like stepping back in time.
Wow, that's amazing. What else is down there?
Well, one of the most fascinating finds has to be the Domus Aurea, Nero's extravagant palace.
Oh, Nero, the infamous emperor.
The very same. After he died, well, his successors weren't exactly fans, so they decided to erase his memory, so to speak.
Erase his memory? How do you erase a whole palace?
Well, they literally buried it, covered it with dirt and debris.
Seriously, they buried a whole palace.
Yep. It was rediscovered centuries later, in the 15th century, I think. Talk about a hidden treasure.
That's incredible. So it wasn't just palaces they were hiding down there, right?
Oh, no. There are networks of ancient tunnels, crypts, even what some believe to be a whole underground city beneath Hadrian's villa. They use these spaces for all sorts of things, from moving goods and, unfortunately, slaves, to escaping during times of siege.
An underground city. Wow, that sounds straight out of a movie.
It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? The Romans, they were incredible builders both above ground and below.
Okay, so we've gone from the shocking to the strange to the downright hidden. What else have you got for me?
Well, before we wrap things up, how about we explore some of the urban legends and secrets that still surround Rome today? Those whispers of mystery and intrigue that just add to the city's allure.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. I love a good mystery. What kind of secrets are we talking about?
Well, our source, the 10 best-kept secrets of Rome, from Greyline I Love Rome, mentions this place called the Casina del Civet.
The Casina del Civet. What is that?
It's this whimsical little house tucked away in the park of Villa Torlonia, known for its, get this, owl-shaped decorations.
Owl-shaped decorations. That sounds adorable. Not your typical Roman ruin.
Not at all. It's a real hidden gem, a little touch of fairy tale magic in the heart of Rome.
Okay, I'm putting that on my list of places to visit. What else is there?
How about something a little spookier? The Museum of the Souls in Purgatory.
The Museum of the Souls in Purgatory. Now that sounds intriguing. What's the story there?
Well, it's located in the Church of the Sacro Cuore del Suffragio, and it houses all sorts of artifacts that are supposed to be evidence of, well, contact with the afterlife.
Contact with the afterlife. Okay, you have my attention. Tell me more.
So the story goes that shortly after the church was built, a fire broke out, and when the smoke cleared, there was this image of a suffering soul burned into one of the walls.
A ghostly image from a fire? That's a little creepy, I have to admit.
Yeah, a bit eerie.
Yeah.
And the priest who owned the church was so convinced that it was a sign from purgatory that he started collecting all sorts of artifacts related to similar events, like handprints scorched into prayer books and faces that appeared on clothing.
Wow, that's both fascinating and a little unsettling. It really shows how these beliefs about the afterlife were so ingrained in Roman culture and how those beliefs still kind of linger in the city today.
Exactly. Oh, and for one final Roman secret, there's this really cool optical illusion on Via Piccolomini. As you walk along this street, the dome of St. Peter's Basilica appears to move closer as you walk away from it.
Wait, what? That doesn't make sense. How can something appear closer when you're moving further away?
It's all about perspective. The way the buildings are positioned, they kind of frame the view of the dome. As you move closer, you have a wider field of view, but as you walk away, the buildings block more and more of the surroundings, making the dome seem larger and closer. It's a really cool trick of the eye.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like Rome just keeps on surprising you, even after all these years. You know, we've really covered a lot of ground today, from those shocking Roman practices to their strange food to the hidden depths of the city, those lingering urban legends.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has, and there's still so much more to explore.
Absolutely. But for now, let's take a quick break and come back with one final, shocking Roman revelation. A story of betrayal, ambition, and a prophecy that shook the empire to its core.
A prophecy? Okay, now I'm really hooked. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and I'm ready for that shocking Roman revelation you promised. You know, the one with the prophecy that shook the empire? Spill the beans.
Okay, so this one takes us a bit outside the usual Roman narrative. We're going to delve into the early days of Islam.
Islam. Wow. Okay, this is unexpected. How does that tie into ancient Rome?
Well, our source, an article from Al-Hakam called Prophecies of the Holy Quran, Roman Defeat Followed by Victory, talks about a historical event that happened during the early years of Prophet Muhammad's mission, around 615 AD, something like that.
Okay, 615 AD. So we're still in the Roman Empire era, but things are changing, right? What was going on at that time?
Well, the Roman Empire was facing some serious challenges from the east, from the Persian Empire. They had this huge clash, a battle near Antioch in 613 AD. And the Persians, they actually won, big time.
Oh, wow. A Roman defeat. That's not something you hear about every day. What was the reaction back in Rome?
It was a big deal, for sure. A lot of anxiety, uncertainty. But for the Muslims in Mecca, it was especially concerning.
Why? Because they were so far away from the action.
No, it was more symbolic. You see, the Muslims saw the Romans, who were Christians, as kind of allies in their belief in one God. And the Persians, they were Zoroastrians, a different religion altogether.
So the Muslims were invested in the outcome of this Roman-Persian conflict because of its religious implications.
Exactly. They saw it as a kind of struggle between monotheism and polytheism. And this is where that shocking prophecy comes in.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me about this prophecy.
So, according to Surah Ar-Rum in the Quran, which was revealed around that time, it predicted that despite this defeat, the Romans would actually be victorious. Within a few years, no less.
Wow. A bold prediction, considering the circumstances. What did people think about that?
Well, for the Muslims in Mecca who were facing their own persecution, it was a sign of hope, a message of resilience. It also said that on the day of the Roman victory, the believers would rejoice.
So it wasn't just a prediction about a future event, it was also a message of encouragement for the Muslims.
Right. And what's really amazing is that the prophecy actually came true. Just a few years later, in 622 AD, the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, he launched a counterattack against the Persians.
A counterattack? That's pretty daring, considering how powerful the Persians were at the time.
It was a risky move, for sure. But Heraclius, He was a brilliant strategist, and he led his army deep into Persian territory. And in 627 AD, they had this decisive victory at the Battle of Nineveh.
The Battle of Nineveh. So the Romans, they actually pulled it off, just like the Quran predicted.
They did, and that victory, it really changed things. The Persian Empire, it never fully recovered from that defeat.
What an incredible turn of events. And for the Muslims, it must have been seen as a confirmation of their faith.
It was a huge moment for them, a sign that God was on their side, that the Quran was true.
This story is just mind-blowing. It shows how interconnected history really is, how events that seem totally separate can actually have these huge ripple effects. And it highlights the power of belief, how a prophecy can inspire people to keep going, even when things look bleak.
It's a reminder that history is full of surprises, and that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
You know, this deep dive into ancient Rome has been a real eye-opener. We've learned about their family dramas, their powerful emperors, their questionable hygiene habits, their strange food, their hidden underground world, and even the prophecies that shaped their destiny. It's been a wild ride.
It has, and it just goes to show there's always more to learn, always another layer to uncover.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through ancient Rome. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep with us. Until next time.
See you then.